online. So what I do, and everybody in this room needs to be paying attention to me and stopping whatever else you're doing, especially if it has to do with another class, please. So, oh good, is somebody recording? Okay. Ollie's recording, okay. So I have you all for your final exam write an essay by hand, okay? So you don't type it. It's going to be handwritten out. So those of you in Cobble and Cassie, you should just come in for your exams. That is the most appropriate thing for you to do, okay? So if you need me to send a note to your mom that says, please, she needs to come in for exams, you can let me know. But for those of you in Cobble, what you'll do is just what you've done for me in the past, which is write by hand and then send me a picture through chat. Okay?
Okay.
You won't have the prompt until that morning of the exam or evening in your case. Okay. So yeah, so you're going to get a prompt. So something that we haven't really done as yet, because I've been reading so much to you, a formal essay in this class. Okay, so that's one of the things I want to talk about over the next few days. Let's see, record and transcribe. Okay, so recording. Which is, you know, what does the format of an essay look like? Many of you, or most of you, or all of you should know something about that already because you're in 11th or 12th grade. And when you write them by hand and in a space of 2 hours, obviously it's going to be a little less formal than I would have you do if you were going to be writing it all together, you know, typing it, and I'm going through it with you. But, you know, every formal essay format, you're going to have your introduction, right, that talks about what the prompt is asking about and what sources, what materials you plan to use to answer that prompt. Okay. And what is that requirement here? It's what we have been reading, right? So you would use from The Alchemist, you could be using from obviously A Thousand Splendid Suns, and you can be using any of the short stories. I also like to give you the option of going beyond those and anything else that you have read. And sometimes I even put in, you know, what current events are playing at the same time, or what historical events do you know about that tie in? Because, you know, The Alchemist is an exception of the books I usually teach, which really try to incorporate some historical or social aspect that is relevant in reality, even though what we read is fiction, right? So just like The Thousand Splendid Suns. So sometimes you can choose a prompt that asks you to incorporate that as well. Okay. So what I will do is you will have choices. Probably, Jeffrey, you're listening because I'm talking about your final exam. Okay, I'm talking about your final exam. You can shut that actually for me, Sean. That'd be great. Thank you. So I'm talking about your final exam. So listen carefully. So you'll have probably 4. I haven't come up with them yet, but you'll have 4 different prompts to choose from. So you'll have some choice as to what you write about. Okay. What choice you don't have is that you have to be incorporating some aspects of the literature we have been reading this year, right? And then beyond that, you'll have some choice as to what you include. Okay. So generally what I like to do is find a quote of some sort that kind of is reflective of the themes that we've been talking about, and then ask you to kind of jump from that quote into a discussion of what we have read and how it applies to that particular theme. Okay, so again, you only have 2 hours to write it. You're going to write it by hand. You'll do the best that you can. Okay, I don't expect perfection in either English or content. I expect thoughtfulness, and I expect good details. Okay, the more specific you are, the better. Do not be vague. So if you're going to make a statement and you're using literature to back it up, you do not need to use quotes. Okay. So, that is not necessary, because you're not going to be leafing through the book, right? Or scrolling through all your stuff. Before the exam, we'll go and review what we have read so far this year to refresh your mind. But supporting what you say with detailed evidence is a must in anything that you write and in any class, right? So just keep that in mind as we go. So I will, on the exam essay prompts, I will have the prompts, but I'll also have at the bottom the reminder of what an essay looks like. Okay, and we can also go through that when we review our materials for the exam. Because we're kind of coming close and we lost some time last week when I wasn't here, I think things slowed down dramatically when I wasn't here. A lot of what we'll do writing wise with 1,000 Splendid Suns will happen when we come back from break. So for those of you in Kabul, what happens is we have our exams right before our winter holidays. And so we'll be off from school the 21st through January 8th, I think is right. So 2 weeks that we will not have classes. Okay. Question?
So when the test will be?
When will the test be? Did you see the it'll be December 18. And for you, December 18, yeah, I sent you the schedule in the Teams chat, so you can take a look. It has the whole schedule for the 3 days. So it's 3 days of exams. So there are no classes. There is an exam, a break period, and then another exam, and it goes by period. So for you guys that are newer, that's, if you have questions about it, let me know about how the exam schedule works.
That's English and history exams.
Yeah. Yeah. So you will have English and history. The people here will be tortured with math and chemistry and, environmental science. Yeah. And whatever else they're taking, they get a whole 3 days of it. Woohoo. But then, your day ends at 1:30 so that you can go study for the next one. Yeah. So the only studying for this English one is just reviewing, and that's why study guides are very helpful, right? Reviewing what we have read. And, because you don't need to memorize, quote unquote, anything. Okay. So it's reviewing what we've read. In other classes, good luck. But there will not be any sort of multiple choice, test here. It'll just be your writing. Okay.
Miss?
Yes.
So our test will be from the Alchemist book that we have started our class. So in 1,000 Splendid Sun. That's right?
Yes. Yes. And any of the short stories we've read too. And I think you guys have read some short stories and not necessarily others. But also if there are other books that you have read that you can incorporate into what the prompt is asking, you may use those too. It doesn't only have to be what we've read. You must use what we've read, but you can also use something else.
It means we have a title and we have to write an essay about the title.
It'll be what we call a prompt. So it will be a quote that I choose that kind of reflects themes that we have been reading. So what do I mean by themes? I mean, family, women's rights, courage, goals, any of that stuff. And so I usually kind of dig around and on my Goodreads quotes and find something that speaks to me, and I put it there, and then I ask you to write about it in a way that it speaks to you. Okay.
So what we write in our essay should be related to the things that we have studied. Okay, the books. Yes. And the things that we have in those books.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I'll give you an example closer to. I'm not going to leave anybody out in the cold. Yeah. Good. Well, it doesn't require a whole lot of studying. That's helpful. Yeah. Yeah, it might be the easiest final you have. Yeah. Yeah. Lucy has 6 finals, if that makes you guys feel better. Though, of course, you have tests, I'm sure, in your school there too at Malwood. So I'm sure that, yeah. Okay, so that's the little tidbit on that. Okay. And I know that I usually try and have done an essay by now, but with English as a second language, I've kind of slowed down a little bit the way I've done things, and I had to do the creative writing as opposed to the formal essay writing. So I will walk you through that. And also, as always, you know, when you're taking the exam, and if you guys need to go offline for it, that's fine. And then if you have questions, you can always chat me or come back online. I will always be here. I'll be here for that 2-hour chunk. You need to just ask me. Okay. Like if you've forgotten the author's name, or if you're, you know, unsure about your thesis statement, or you need help with a specific example, you have something in your head, but you don't remember it precisely, ask me, right? This is about learning. This is not about catching you at doing something wrong. Okay. So I am always here to, you know, make it work, and to help you with your learning. Okay. And, you know, and because I'm asking you to do it by hand, there may be language issues, right? So if you have a word that you're wanting to use and you're stumped, again, you know, just ask if you can use your translator or something. Okay. Yeah. It's about learning. Okay. So that's the story with the final. Any other
So
questions before we move on?
the test that we have, we have 2 hours to write an essay, and
Yes.
if we get offline, it doesn't matter.
Yes, that's fine, because, you know, I understand that staying online for, you know, 2 straight hours can be a little challenging, and it might be easier for you to come and go as necessary. And then ultimately at the end of that 2 hours, whatever you have finished, you'll photograph and send to me in the chat.
So, got it. Is there any word limitation, for example, between 300 words and 500 words, things like that?
There's no word limitation. We just kind of do it by paragraphs, right? So you'll have an introduction, and then you'll have at least 2 body paragraphs. Formal essay is 3 body paragraphs, but when you're writing by hand and you have a time limit, sometimes 2 substantial body paragraphs that have a lot of good evidence is fine. And then a conclusion, right? So I will give you an example closer to, so that you have a better picture of it. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Everybody good? Okay. Yes. Someone question? Zura?
Teacher, I haven't studied The Alchemist. Should I
Yes.
do?
No, that's okay. Again, you can use something else that you have read. Like you did the Through the Tunnel.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. So you can use whatever you have read. Yeah. So that's fine. Yeah.
Great.
Okay. Anybody else? No. Okay. All righty. Let's move on to 1,000 Splendid Suns. So let me see. We are off at page 1. You guys need a book? Yeah. Okay. What I would like to do is read the next 2 chapters. Hang on. I want to see. Do I what? Layla. Yeah. Yeah, this one's Layla. Yeah. Chapter 30. All right. I'm just looking at my. Yeah. So the next writing practice I have for you, the quiz 4, is going to be chapters 27 through 32. So we're on 30. So I'm going to read 30, 31, 32. Okay. And then I will put the quiz into either I'll send it to you guys in the chat in Kabul, and you guys will put in OneNote. Okay. So that'll be quiz 4. And that will be something we work on for, you might have some time at the end of this class, but it's hard to say. I can't remember how long these chapters are. Okay. Let's see. All righty.
Teacher, one question.
Yes. Yeah.
So first we have our literature English test, and then after, for example, 30 minutes, we will start our history class, history test.
That will be on the next day. So if you
Okay.
look at if you look at the schedule, hi Zakrula, we are just been talking about our final exam week. June, I'm already in June, December 18, 19, and 20. In that schedule, you'll see it says period. It goes by periods. And so period 1 is your English class and period 2 is your history class, which usually come right after each other. But in the exam week, it's going to come on different days. So your English will be the first one that everybody takes for period 1. Just everybody in this class.
Hello, Ms. Helen.
Yes. Good morning. Glad your
Good
internet is
morning. Good morning to you. It's so nice to see you again.
on.
Okay. I see you guys have been talking about schedules of exam. Okay, that's great. I think we have 8 students here that they are available. They have joined the class and they will get information about their exams, and they will share with their classmates too. I will try to make them sure that they are available on that day, on the schedule.
That's great. Okay. Yeah. Tuesday. So the history test. Right. And then Tuesday, you guys will have your history test on Tuesday morning. And again, it's 2 hours. Right. So same time block. Yeah. 8:30 to 10:30. And then our exam is Monday, 8:30 to 10:30. And I don't know what Jeff's exam looks like. So yeah. So I'm sure there's probably, there's probably multiple choice to it. I don't know how he's going to do it. You can definitely ask him. He'd be happy to tell you. But mine will be the essay. Okay. All right. So I want to read 30 and, 30 through 32, if I can get it done today. And then I will put in the questions for 27 to 32 to have you guys answer. Okay. All righty. And I see, Ali, that you're recording, which is great. I'm trying to get these up on YouTube too, by the way. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but I have been adding them to that HBA Kabul English YouTube channel. So, and I know that's easiest for Fariba Mohibi, who's watching them when she can. Okay, you guys ready? Chapter 30, Layla. The next day, Layla stayed in bed. Okay, what did Layla just do at the end of the chapter before? What did she agree to? Marry Rashid. Okay. The next day, Layla stayed in bed. She was under the blanket in the morning when Rashid poked his head in and said he was going to the barber. She was still in bed when he came home late in the afternoon when he showed her his new haircut, his new used suit, blue with cream pinstripes, and the wedding band he'd bought her. Rashid sat on the bed beside her, made a great show of slowly undoing the ribbon, of opening the box and plucking out the ring delicately. He let on that he'd traded in Miriam's old wedding ring for it. Ooh, what do you think about that, you guys? Not nice. She doesn't care, believe me. She won't even notice. Layla pulled away to the far end of the bed. She could hear Miriam downstairs, the hissing of her iron. She never wore it anyway, Rashid said. I don't want it, Layla said weakly. Not like this. You have to take it back. Take it back? An impatient look flashed across his face and was gone. He smiled. I had to add some cash, too. Quite a lot, in fact. This is a better ring. 22-karat gold. Feel how heavy. Go on, feel it. No? He closed the box. How about flowers? That would be nice. You like flowers? Do you have a favorite? Daisies? Tulips? Lilacs? No flowers? Good. I don't see the point myself. I just thought, now I know a tailor here in Demazang. I was thinking we could take you there tomorrow, get you fitted for a proper dress. Layla shook her head. Rashid raised his eyebrows. I just as soon, Layla began. He put a hand on her neck. Layla couldn't help wincing and recoiling. His touch felt like wearing a prickly old wet wool sweater with no undershirt. Yes, I'd just as soon we get it done. Rashid's mouth opened, then spread in a yellow, toothy grin. Eager, he said. By the way, I don't know if you know this, but cigarette smoking is one of the things that makes your teeth yellow, the nicotine. So that's probably why his teeth are particularly bad. Remember how he smoked all the time. Before Abdul Sharif's visit, Layla had decided to leave for Pakistan. Even after Abdul Sharif came bearing his news, Layla thought now she might have left, gone somewhere far from here, detached herself from this city where every street corner was a trap, where every alley hid a ghost that sprang at her like a jack-in-the-box. She might have taken the risk, but suddenly leaving was no longer an option. Not with this daily retching, this new fullness in her breasts, and the awareness somehow amid all of this turmoil that she had missed a cycle. Does everybody understand what that means? She's pregnant, okay? And whose baby is it? Tariq's.
Yes.
Tariq's, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, okay. Layla pictured herself in a refugee camp, a stark field with thousands of sheets of plastic strung to makeshift poles flapping in the cold, stinging wind. Beneath one of these makeshift tents, she saw her baby, Tariq's baby, its temples wasted, its jaws slack, its skin mottled bluish gray. She pictured its tiny body washed by strangers, wrapped in a tawny shroud, lowered into a hole dug in a patch of windswept land under the disappointed gaze of vultures. How could she run now? Layla took grim inventory of the people in her life. Ahmed and Noor, dead. Hasina, gone. Geeti, dead. Mammy, dead. Bobby, dead. Now Tariq. But miraculously, something of her former life remained, her last link to the person that she had been before she had become so utterly alone. A part of Tariq, still alive inside her, sprouting tiny arms, growing translucent hands. How could she jeopardize the only thing she had left of him, of her old life? She made her decision quickly. 6 weeks had passed since her time with Tariq. Any longer, and Rashid would grow suspicious. She knew that what she was doing was dishonorable, disingenuous, and shameful, and spectacularly unfair to Mariam. But even though the baby inside her was no bigger than a mulberry, Layla already saw the sacrifices a mother had to make. Virtue was only the first. She put a hand on her belly, closed her eyes. Layla would remember the muted ceremony in bits and fragments, the cream-colored stripes of Rashid's suit, the sharp smell of his hairspray, the small shaving nick just above his Adam's apple, the rough pads of his tobacco-stained fingers when he slid the ring on her, the pen, it's not working, the search for a new pen, the contract, the signing, his sure-handed, hers quavering, the prayers, noticing in the mirror that Rashid had trimmed his eyebrows. And somewhere in the room, Mariam watching, the air choking with her disapproval. Layla could not bring herself to meet the older woman's gaze. Lying beneath his cold sheets that night, she watched him pull the curtains shut. She was shaking even before his fingers worked her shirt buttons, tugged at the drawstring of her trousers. He was agitated. His fingers fumbled endlessly with his own shirt, with undoing his belt. Layla had a full view of his sagging breast, his protruding belly button, the small blue vein in the center of it, the tufts of thick white hair on his chest, his shoulders, and upper arms. She felt his eyes crawling all over her. God help me, I think I love you, he said. Through chattering teeth, she asked him to turn out the lights. Later, when she was sure she was asleep, Layla quietly reached beneath the mattress for the knife she had hidden there earlier. With it, she punctured the pad of her index finger. Then she lifted the blanket and let her finger bleed on the sheets where they had lain together. She's pretty smart, actually, Layla, don't you think? When a woman has sex for the first time, sometimes you bleed. And so she's making as if she hadn't had sex before. Yeah. The virgin. Yes. She wants everybody to understand, she wants Rashid to think the baby is his, right? Which makes sense. Yeah. All right, poor Mariam. 31, Mariam. In the daytime, the girl was no more than a creaking bed spring, a patter of footsteps overhead. She was water splashing in the bathroom or a teaspoon clinking against glass in the bedroom upstairs. Occasionally, there were sightings, a blur of a billowing dress in the periphery of Miriam's vision, scurrying up the steps, arms folded across the chest, sandals slapping the heels. But it was inevitable that they would run into each other. Miriam passed the girl on the stairs, in the narrow hallway, in the kitchen, or by the door as she was coming in from the yard. When they met like this, an awkward tension rushed into the space between them. The girl gathered her skirt and breathed out a word or two of apology, as she hurried past, Miriam would chance a sidelong glance and catch a blush. Sometimes she could smell Rashid on her. She could smell his sweat on the girl's skin, his tobacco, his appetite. Sex, mercifully, was a closed chapter in her own life. It had been for some time, and now even the thought of those laborious sessions of lying beneath Rashid made Miriam queasy in the gut. At night, however, this mutually orchestrated dance of avoidance between her and the girl was not possible. Rashid said they were a family. He insisted they were, and families had to eat together, he said. What is this? He said, his fingers working the meat off a bone. The spoon and fork charade was abandoned a week after he married the girl. Have I married a pair of statues? Go on, Miriam. Gapazan, say something to her. Where are your manners? Okay, so what is Rashid now doing? He's making them talk. Yeah, he's trying to make them be a family, but also he's gone back to his usual self, right? So all that courtship, all that, pretending like he's a different person, so Layla would agree to marry him, gone, right? Yeah, he's back to his eating with his fingers. The charade. Does anybody know what charade means? It means a pretending, right? It means pretending. Sucking marrow from a bone, he said to the girl, but you mustn't blame her. She is quiet, a blessing really, because voila, if a person hasn't got much to say, she might as well be stingy with words. We are city people, you and I, but she is a Dehati, a village girl, not even a village girl. No, she grew up in a kolba made of mud outside the village. Her father put her there. Have you told her, Miriam? Have you told her that you are a harami? Well, she is. But she is not without qualities, all things considered. You will see for yourself, Layla Yan. She is sturdy, for one thing, a good worker, and without pretensions. I'll say it this way. If she were a car, she would be a Volga. Miriam was a 33-year-old woman now, but that word, harami, still had sting. Hearing it made her feel like she was a pest, a cockroach. She remembered Nana pulling her wrists. You are a clumsy little harami. This is my reward for everything I've endured, an heirloom-breaking, clumsy little harami. You, Rashid said to the girl, on the other hand, would be a Benz, a brand new first-class shiny Benz. Wah, wah, butt. Okay, so this is kind of one of my favorite examples of Rashid, right? He's such a jerk. So does anybody know, and you guys in Kabul might, does anybody know what a Volga is? Okay, a Volga is a Russian car, okay, a Soviet car, more accurately, actually. And when I was in the Soviet Union in 1986, there were Volgas and there was another kind that I'm forgetting. I feel like it began with an F. All over, that's just, they had two cars basically, and they were all black, right? And it is just a very basic, dull car, okay? But it gets the job done. And that's what he's saying about Miriam, right? She's a Volga. She just gets the job done. On the other hand, he thinks of Layla, right? His beautiful Layla as a Mercedes-Benz, right? This expensive, a new Mercedes-Benz, right? And we also, interestingly, says that when, we know that Miriam's father drove a Mercedes-Benz, right? That would sit outside her door. We still have that kind of happening. Yeah. So anyway, he's compared old Miriam to a Volga and beautiful Layla to a Mercedes-Benz, brand new wah Mercedes-Benz. Yeah. So, and that wasn't very nice. And just even talking about Miriam the way he did at dinner, right? Not nice. She's everything. Yeah, terrible. Not a very sensitive man, Rashid, right? Not a very sensitive man. Okay. All right. He raised one greasy index finger. One must take certain cares with a Benz. as a matter of respect for his beauty and craftsmanship, you see. Oh, you must be thinking that I'm crazy, Duana, with all this talk of automobiles. I'm not saying you are cars. I'm merely making a point. For what came next, Rashid put down the ball of rice he'd made back on the plate. His hands dangled idly over his meal as he looked down with a sober, thoughtful expression. One mustn't speak ill of the dead, much less the Shahid, and I intend to no disrespect when I say this. I want you to know, but I have certain reservations about the way your parents, Allah forgive them and grant them a place in paradise, about their leniency with you. I'm sorry. A cold, hateful look. The girl flashed Rashid at this did not escape Miriam, but he was looking down and did not notice. No matter. The point is, I am your husband now, and it falls on me to guard not only your honor, but ours. Yes, our nong and namus. That is the husband's burden. We've heard this before, haven't we? Mm-hmm. You let me worry about that, please. As for you, you are the queen, the Malika, and this house is your palace. Anything you need done, you ask Miriam, and she will do it for you. Ooh. Won't you, Miriam? And if you fancy something, I will get it for you. You see, that is the sort of husband I am. All I ask in return, well, it is a simple thing. I ask that you avoid leaving this house without my company. That's all. Simple, no? If I am away and you need something urgently, I mean absolutely need it and it cannot wait for me, then you can send Miriam and she will go out and get it for you. You've noticed a discrepancy, surely. Well, one does not drive a Volga and a Benz in the same manner. That would be foolish, wouldn't it? Oh, I also ask that when we are out together that you wear a burqa. For your own protection, naturally. It is best. So many lewd men in this town now. Such vile intentions, so eager to dishonor even a married woman. So, that's all. He caught. Lewd. Do we know what lewd means? It means looking at and thinking about women in a sexual manner, right? I would consider Rashid to be lewd. Yeah. Of course, he doesn't identify that in himself. Yeah, so you had that magazine, right? Yeah, exactly. All right, he coughed. I should say that Miriam will be my eyes and ears when I am away. How do you think Miriam's feeling about all this right now? Not happy. I should say that Miriam will be my eyes and ears when I'm away. Here, he shot Miriam a fleeting look that was as hard as a steel-toed kick to the temple. Okay, if Miriam is not his eyes and ears and does as she is told, what will happen to Miriam? He will beat her, yeah. All right, not that I am mistrusting, quite the contrary. Frankly, you strike me as a far wiser than your years. But you are still a young woman, Layla Yan, a Dr. Jawan, and young women can make unfortunate choices. They can be prone to mischief. Anyway, Miriam will be accountable. And if there is a slip up, on and on he went. Okay, so what he is saying is that Miriam is responsible for anything Layla does. If Layla does something that he doesn't like, who's going to get the punishment? Miriam, right? Oof, that's going to help their relationship. On and on he went. Miriam sat watching the girl out of the corner of her eye as Rashid's demands and judgments rained down on them like rockets on Kabul. One day, Miriam was in the living room folding some shirts of Rashid's that she had plucked from the clothesline in the yard. She didn't know how long the girl had been standing there, but when she picked up a shirt and turned around, she found her standing by the doorway, hands cupped around a glass full of tea. I didn't mean to startle you, the girl said. I'm sorry. Miriam only looked at her. The sun fell on the girl's face, on her large green eyes and her smooth brow, on her high cheekbones and the appealing thick eyebrows, which were nothing like Miriam's own, thin and featureless. Her yellow hair, uncombed this morning, was middle parted. Miriam could see in the stiff way the girl clutched the cup, the tightened shoulders, that she was nervous. She imagined her sitting on the bed, working up the nerve. The leaves are turning, the girl said companionably. Have you seen? Autumn is my favorite. I like the smell of it. When people burn leaves in their gardens. My mother, she likes springtime the best. You knew my mother? Not really. The girl cupped a hand behind her ear. I'm sorry? Miriam raised her voice. I said, no, I didn't know your mother. Oh, is there something you want? Miriam yawned. I want to, about the things he said the other night. I've been meaning to talk to you about it, Miriam broke in. Yes, please, the girl said earnestly, almost eagerly. She took a step forward and looked relieved. Outside, an oriole was warbling. Someone was pulling a cart. Miriam could hear the creaking of its hinges, the bouncing and rattling of its iron wheels. There was the sound of gunfire not so far away. A single shot, followed by 3 more, then nothing. I won't be your servant, Miriam said. I won't. The girl flinched. No, of course not. You may be the palace Malika and me the Dahati, but I won't take orders from you. You can complain to him and he can slit my throat, but I won't do it. Do you hear me? I won't be your servant. No, I don't expect. And if you think you can use your looks to get rid of me, you're wrong. I was here first. I won't be thrown out. I won't have you cast me out. It's not what I want, the girl said weakly. And I see your wounds are healed up now, so you can start doing your share of the work in this house. The girl was nodding quickly. Some of her tea spilled, but she didn't notice. Yes, that's the other reason I came down, to thank you for taking care of me. Well, I wouldn't have, Miriam snapped. I wouldn't have fed you and washed you and nursed you if I'd known you were going to turn around and steal my husband. Steal? I will still cook and wash the dishes. You will do the laundry and sweeping. The rest we will alternate daily. And one more thing, I have no use for your company. I don't want it. What I want is to be alone. You will leave me be and I will return the favor. That's how we will get on. Those are the rules. When she was done speaking, her heart was hammering and her mouth felt parched. Miriam had never before spoken in this manner, had never stated her will so forcefully. It ought to have felt exhilarating, but the girl's eyes had teared up and her face was drooping. And what satisfaction Miriam found from this outburst felt meager, somehow illicit. She extended the shirts toward the girl. Put them in the almari, not the closet. He likes the whites in the top drawer and the rest in the middle with the socks. The girl set the cup on the floor and put her hands out for the shirts, palms up. I'm sorry about all of this, she croaked. You should be, Miriam said. You should be sorry. Whew. What do you think about Miriam doing that? It's sad. Yeah, didn't give her a chance. Yes, we're going to read one more. Anybody else feel differently? So Lucy said that it's sad she didn't give Layla a chance. Anybody else feel anything? Think anything? Yeah. Sorry, my class here. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because if she just let Layla speak, I would have.
Yeah, if she'd let Layla speak, yeah. Anybody feel kind of proud of Miriam?
At the same time.
Yeah, I'm sad too, but I'm a little proud of her because she's never stood up for herself, right? I mean, her circumstances have always been keeping her down, right? And she never felt like she had a voice. So granted, you know, in this circumstance, but, you know, she was at least expressing herself honestly, right? In a way that she had not done before. And of course, with Rashid, she can't really express herself honestly or she'll get whacked.
Suppressed for so long.
Yeah.
Misunderstanding.
Yeah.
Marriage.
Yes, I agree with you. There's a misunderstanding.
She
Yeah.
feels like that Rashid is her husband
Yeah.
and still oh
Yeah. And I could see too, though, you know, she's 33 and, you know, if she was quote unquote cast out, like had to leave, that would not go well for her. I mean, she has nothing, right? So, you know, I can see, but I'm a little bit proud of her for at least standing up for herself because she's so distraught over the situation, even if it isn't technically Layla's fault, right? Yeah, she didn't steal the husband, right? of course, she doesn't know why Layla agreed either. Yeah. All right, Layla.
Okay, teacher, can I ask a question?
Of course.
Teacher, I'm confused about the way this side of Layla. So Layla understand that she is pregnant or no? After the Abdul Rashid said about the Tariq, Layla decided to marry with the Rashid. I don't know about them. The first Layla understand about the baby or no? Just after she understand about Tariq, that Tariq died, she decided to marry with Rashid.
Yes. So she feels that she doesn't have a choice because her baby would be fatherless, right? So she would be 14 years old with a baby. And she thinks that marrying Rashid and essentially pretending the baby is his, she will have some protection for herself and the baby. She would rather leave, but she was envisioning raising a baby in a refugee camp in Pakistan and the baby dying, right? And so it's kind of the one thing she has, as she said, that was left from her old life, was this connection, this baby that is Tariq's, from that one night before he left for Pakistan, right? That one moment when they let themselves go. So she is strategically thinking about what would be best for the baby. And that's why she agreed to marry Rashid. And of course, Miriam doesn't know that, right? So, and Miriam shouldn't know it because she would certainly probably at this point anyway, tell Rashid, right? So that's why Layla agreed to marry Rashid and wanted to do it fast.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else?
Okay, teacher, thank you. And
Yeah.
we should proud all mothers that they are in the world. We know, according to the Rashid situation, we know that Layla know that Rashid can't be a good father for her baby, but also he decided to marry with Rashid, and she decided to grow her baby by herself.
Yeah. And to keep that baby and yeah, that's a I as you guys know, I have 3 children and you know, I agree with Layla. We'll pretty much do anything necessary, right? And so, and she knows that it's, as she said, it's dishonorable, it's disingenuous, it's not, certainly not nice to marry him. So Layla understands that she's also asking a lot of Miriam in this situation, but you know, her one goal is to protect her baby and to have food and a roof over her head is the way she's going to do it, by marrying Rashid. So, yeah. And you're right, Rashid's not going to turn out to be such a great dad.
I think great husband, but if he has a child and this is going to be probably the only child he's going to have.
Yeah, so Paula just said that he's definitely not a great husband, but he might prove to be a better father if this is the only child that he has. So we'll see how that turns out. You'd be surprised, men can reproduce for a long time, way beyond women. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, that's fine, except that this is Tariq's baby, so it's gonna be okay. All right, let's read Layla. Layla remembered a gathering once, years before at the house, on one of Mammy's good days. The women had been sitting in the garden, eating from a platter of fresh mulberries that Wajma had picked from the tree in her yard. The plump mulberries had been white and pink, and some of the dark purple as the bursts of tiny veins in Wajma's nose. You heard how his son died, Wajma had said, energetically shoveling another handful of mulberries into her sunken mouth. He drowned, didn't he? Okay, so this is a conversation that Layla's remembering about Rashid, okay? Because remember, when Miriam went through his drawers, he saw a picture of Rashid with his first wife and of a little boy. Do you remember that? Yeah? Okay. So this is the story about that. This is what happened. Why he became, why he lost his family. All right. You heard how his son died, Wajma had said, energetically shoving another handful of mulberries into her sunken mouth. He drowned, didn't he? Neela, Gita's mother, had said, at Garga Lake, wasn't it? But did you know that Rashid, Wajma raised a finger, made a show of nodding and chewing and making them wait for her to swallow. Did you know that he used to drink sharab back then? That he was crying drunk that day? It's true, crying drunk is what I heard. And that was mid-morning. By noon, he had passed out on a lounge chair. You could have fired the noon cannon next to his ear and he wouldn't have batted an eyelash. Layla remembered how Wajma had covered her mouth, burped, how her tongue had gone exploring between her few remaining teeth. You can imagine the rest. The boy went into the water unnoticed. They spotted him a while later, floating face down. People rushed to help, half trying to wake up the boy, the other half the father. Someone bent over the boy, did the mouth-to-mouth thing you're supposed to do. It was pointless. They could all see that. The boy was gone. Layla remembered Wajma raising a finger and her voice quivering with piety. This is why the Holy Quran forbids sharab, because it always falls on the sober to pay for the sins of the drunk. So it goes. It was this story that was circling in Layla's head after she gave Rashid the news about the baby. He had immediately hopped on his bicycle, ridden to a mosque, and prayed for a boy. That night, all during the meal, Layla watched Miriam push a cube of meat around her plate. Layla was there when Rashid sprang the news on Miriam in a high, dramatic voice. Layla had never before witnessed such cheerful cruelty. Miriam's lashes fluttered when she heard. The flush spread across her face. She sat sulking, looking desolate. Okay, so what are we finding out about Rashid's circumstances? What is this implying, this story? That he's responsible for his son's death, right? After Rashid went upstairs to listen to his radio and Layla helped Miriam clear the sofra, I can't imagine what you are now, Miriam said, picking grains of rice and breadcrumbs. If you were a Benz before. Layla tried a more lighthearted tactic. A train? Maybe a big jumbo jet. Miriam straightened up. I hope you don't think this excuses you from chores. Layla opened her mouth, thought better of it. She reminded herself that Miriam was the only innocent party in this arrangement. Miriam and the baby. Later, in bed, Layla burst into tears. What was the matter? Rashid wanted to know, lifting her chin. Was she ill? Was it the baby? Was something wrong with the baby? No? Was Miriam mistreating her? That's it, isn't it? No, Wala Obila. I'll go down and teach her a lesson. Who does she think she is, that harami, treating you? No! He was getting up already, and she had to grab him by the forearm, pull him back down. No, don't. She's been decent to me. I need a minute, that's all. I'll be fine. He sat beside her, stroking her neck, murmuring. His hand slowly crept down her back, then up again. He leaned in, flashed his crowded teeth. Let's see then, he purred, if I can help you feel better. First, the trees, those that hadn't been cut down for firewood, shed their spotty yellow and copper leaves. Then came the winds, cold and raw, ripping through the city. They tore off the last of the clinging leaves and left the trees looking ghostly against the muted brown of the hills. The season's first snowfall was light, the flakes no sooner fallen than melted. Then the roads froze, the snow gathered in heaps on the rooftops, piled halfway up frost-caked windows. With snow came the kites, once the rulers of Kabul's winter skies, now timid trespassers in territory claimed by streaking rockets and fighter jets. Rashid kept bringing home news of the war, and Layla was baffled by the allegiances that Rashid tried to explain to her. Sayyaf was fighting the Hazaras, he said. The Hazaras were fighting Masood. And he's fighting Hekmakhtar, of course, who has the support of the Pakistanis. Mortal enemies, those two, Masood and Hekmakhtar. Sayyaf, he's siding with Masood, and Hekmakhtar supports the Hazaras for now. As for the unpredictable Uzbek commander Dostum, Rashid said no one knew where he stood. Dostum had fought the Soviets in the 1980s alongside the Mujahideen but had defected and joined Najibullah's communist puppet regime after the Soviets had left. He then earned a medal, presented by Najibullah himself, before defecting once again and returning to the Mujahideen side. For the time being, Rashid said, Dostum was supporting Massoud. In Kabul, particularly in western Kabul, fires raged. The black palls of smoke mushroomed over snow-clad buildings. Embassies closed down. Schools collapsed. In hospital waiting rooms, Rashid said, the wounded were bleeding to death. In operating rooms, limbs were being amputated without anesthesia. But don't worry, he said, you're safe with me, my flower, my ghoul. Anyone tries to harm you, I'll rip out their liver and make them eat it. That winter, everywhere Layla turned, walls blocked her way. She thought longingly of the wide-open skies of her childhood, of her days going to Buzkashi tournaments with Bobby and shopping at the Madai with Mammy, and of her days of running free in the streets and gossiping about boys with Gidi and Hasina, her days of sitting with Tariq in a bed of clover on the banks of a stream somewhere, trading riddles and candy, watching the sun go down. Okay, so someone in Kabul, please tell me what Buzkashi is. Because I don't know.
Actually, Buzkashi is a kind of game in Afghanistan. The people ride horses, and they just try to catch the gut from the circle, and just give it a ride all around the ground. Then take it back to that circle, and the one who can do that is the winner. But other people who are riding horses are trying to catch the gut from that guy and not let him to just get right all around the ground.
That sounds pretty exciting. A little bit like polo here, but thank you for that, because I would never have known that. Okay, now I'm smarter.
Yeah, most.
Okay, but thinking of Tariq was treacherous because before she could stop, she saw him lying on a bed far from home, tubes piercing his burned body. Like a bile that kept burning her throat these days, a deep, paralyzing grief would come rising up Layla's chest. Her legs would turn to water. She would have to hold on to something. Layla passed that winter of 1992, sweeping the house, scrubbing the pumpkin-colored walls of the bedroom she shared with Rashid, washing clothes outside in a big copper lagan. Sometimes she saw herself as if hovering above her own body, saw herself squatting over the rim of the lagan, sleeves rolled up to the elbows, pink hands bringing soapy water from one of Rashid's undershirts. She felt lost then, casting about, like a shipwrecked survivor, no shore in sight, only miles and miles of water. When it was too cold to go outside, Layla ambled around the house. She walked, dragging a fingernail along the wall, down the hallway, then back down the steps, then up, her face unwashed, hair uncombed. She walked until she ran into Miriam, who shot her a cheerless glance and went back to slicing the stem of a bell pepper and trimming strips of fat from meat. A hurtful silence would fill the room, and Layla could almost see the wordless hostility radiating from Miriam, like waves of heat rising from asphalt. She would retreat back to her room, sit on the bed, and watch the snow falling. Rashid took her to his shoe shop one day. When they were out together, he walked alongside her, one hand gripping her by the elbow. For Layla, being out on the streets had become an exercise in avoiding injury. Her eyes were still adjusting to the limited grid-like visibility of the burqa, her feet still stumbling over the hem. She walked in perpetual fear of tripping and falling, of breaking an ankle, stepping into a pothole. Still, she found some comfort in the anonymity that the burqa provided. She wouldn't be recognized this way if she ran into an old acquaintance of hers. She wouldn't have to watch the surprise in their eyes, or the pity, or the glee at how far she had fallen, at how her lofty aspirations had been dashed. Rashid's shop was bigger and more brightly lit than Layla had imagined. He had her sit behind his crowded workbench, the top of which was littered with old soles and scraps of leftover leather. He showed her his hammers, demonstrated how the sandpaper wheel worked, his voice ringing high and proud. He felt her belly, not through the shirt but under it, his fingertips cold and rough like bark on her distended skin. Layla remembered Tariq's hands, soft but strong, the tortuous full veins in the backs of them, which she had always found so appealingly masculine. Swelling so quickly, Rashid said. It's going to be a big boy. My son will be a Pahlawan, like his father. Layla pulled down her shirt. It filled her with fear when he spoke like this. How are things with Miriam? She said they were fine. Good, good. She didn't tell him that they'd had their first true fight. It had happened a few days earlier. Layla had gone to the kitchen and found Miriam yanking drawers and slamming them shut. She was looking, Miriam said, for the long wooden spoon she used to stir rice. Where did you put it? She said, wheeling around to face Layla. Me? Layla said, I didn't take it. I hardly come in here. I've noticed. Is that an accusation? It's how you wanted it, remember? You said you would make the meals, but if you want to switch, so you're saying it grew little legs and walked out? Tweep, tweep, tweep. Is that what happened, Dega? I'm saying, Layla said, trying to maintain control. Usually, she could will herself to absorb Miriam's derision and finger pointing, but her ankles had swollen, her head hurt, and the heartburn was vicious that day. I am saying that maybe you've misplaced it. Misplaced it? Miriam pulled a drawer. The spatulas, the knives inside clanked. How long have you been here? A few months? I've lived in this house for 19 years, Dr. Joe. I have kept that spoon in this drawer since you were shitting your diapers. Still, Layla said in the brink now, teeth clenched, it's possible that you put it somewhere and forgot. And it's possible you hid it somewhere to aggravate me. You're a sad, miserable woman, Layla said. Miriam flinched, then recovered, pursed her lips. And you're a whore and a dozen, a thieving whore, and that's what you are. Then there was shouting, pots raised, though not hurled. They called each other names that made Layla blush now. They hadn't spoken since. Layla was still shocked at how easily she'd come unhinged. But the truth was, part of her had liked it, had liked how it felt to scream at Miriam, to curse her, to have a target at which to focus all her simmering anger, her grief. Layla wondered, with something like insight, if it wasn't the same for Miriam. After she had run down upstairs and thrown herself on Rashid's bed, downstairs Miriam was still yelling, "Dirt on your head! Dirt on your head!" Layla had lain on the bed, groaning into the pillow, missing her parents suddenly and with an overpowering intensity she hadn't felt since those terrible days just after the attack. She lay there, clutching handfuls of the bedsheet until suddenly her breath caught. She sat up, hands shooting down to her belly. The baby had just kicked for the first time. Woo! Yikes, huh? Okay. I'm going to copy over the questions for you guys to answer. Okay, I will put them for the Kabul people in the Kabul HBA 12 chat and for you guys in OneNote. Any last questions before we sign off? No? Anybody there? All right, then I will see you guys, hopefully. I love seeing your faces when I can. I will hopefully see your faces tomorrow.
Okay,
Thank
okay.
you.
All right.
We hope
bye.
so. Have a nice
We
day.
hope so.
Okay, goodbye, teacher.
علی
فرمایید استاد.
صدای من خود دارین. من دیرتر بس صنف جاین شدم. راجع به امتحاناتتان چی معلومات داد استاد؟ من فقط هم آخر فهمیدم که اسکیجول امتحاناتتان است. معلوماتی که راجع به امتحان برتان داد استاد.
خب استاد ما 2 روز امتحان داریم، یکی از دوباره ادبیات است و دیگری صنف تاریخ است. در 18 دسامبر شروع میشه و اول تا امتحان انگلیسی رو داریم. خب در امتحان انگلیسی 2 ساعت وقت داریم تا بتونیم یک دونه ایسی نوشته کنیم که حداقل 2 پاراگراف داشته باشه، یعنی 2 بادی پاراگراف داشته باشه. و این ایسی نوشته میکنیم توسط این کتابایی که خواندیم قدردیر این کتابای قصه یا همی موضوعاتی که درس داده باید از ما استفاده کنیم تا بتونیم اون پاراگراف ها رو نوشته کنیم و تمرین کنیم و امور نوشته کنیم.
یعنی محتویات
امی کردیت یا نمره که ما میگیریم از 2 نگاه مثلا در نظر گرفته میشه. یک نگاه ایمنی انگلیسی که نوشته میکنیم و چقدر اکادمیک باشه که استاد در درس‌های بعدی ان شاء الله مو درباره ایسی نوشته کردن یک معلومات خود داده ما و دیگه یه دمی تفکراتی که ما دمی قردیر خواندیم، مثلا از کتابایی که خواندیم، کتاب اولی که مثلا ما گفته بودم که اگر تونستین بخونین همین الکمیست یا کیمیاگر بود و کتابای بعدی ما اما تو باز ما کلشون در نظر گرفته میشه و ما از طریق اونا تفکراتی که درباره اونا داشتیم میگیریم و اونجا ذکر میکنیم و در طریق موضوع کتابا اینا پر میکنیم، اما پاراگراف های زیاد نشته میکنیم.
خب یعنی پاراگراف های اسه تان از امو بخش چیز باشه، کتابایی که خواندین محتویات از او را در قالب یک اسه باید نوشته بکنیم.
بله بله. باز امو پرومپت یا امو تایتلی که اما پرومپت یا تایتلی که ما میگیریم اما فیکس امو روزی که مثلا ما امتحان تیم به ما داده میشه و ما 2 ساعت وقت داریم که رو جواب بدیم و همون میخوایم که جواب بدیم باید او را دستخط نشته کنیم، یعنی باید ما در یک ورق نشته کنیم، نقش رو بگیریم و روان کنیم به استاد.
خب خیلی خوب خیلی خوب. خب خیلی شما یک کار بکنین، امروز 5 دسامبر است نه؟
بله استاد.
امروز 5 از شما حداقل 13 روز دیگه وقت دارین. به همه صنفیتان فعلا ما و شما 3 نفریجه هستیم. به همه صنفیتان هم بگوین که چیز بکنه. 2 نفر دیگه هم هست فکر کنم. من نمیفهم کی است. خب حمیده است، زهره است، لیلا است، خودت هستی. خوب است، با ما یک جا میشه 5 نفر. چیز کنین راجع به بخش اکادمیک رایتینگ تان میشه یک بار کتاب سوم اکادمیک رایتینگ کار بکنین. کتاب سوم را دارین؟
استاد داریم مگم اکادمیک رایتینگ 3.
نمونهش هست پیشتان؟ باش ببینم در تلفن ما اگر سافتش داشتم امرایتان شریک میکنم. بعض مسائل مهمی که در اوجه گفته شده راجع به یک اسی همه گپایش تمرین کرده برین پیش از اینکه استادم براتون معلومات بده و شیوه اسی نوشته کردن رو بگوید. شما کوشش کنین که او کتاب کار کنین. سوم و چهارمشه راجع به اسی سوم و چهارم. اگر میتونین یک مرور عمومی در جریان همی 10 روز تقسیم بندی بکنین، 5 روز برای هر کدامش وقت بگذارین، تقسیمات کنین که چند صفحه از کتاب در یک روز بخونین تا در 5 روز یک کتاب تمام کنین، 5 روز دیگه هم کتاب دیگه را تمام بکنین. ایره یک بار باز کوشش بکنین که بخونین. انشالله فردا باز گپ میزنیم. خب نمیشه که نال ما و شما باز در اوجه گپ بزنیم به دلیل از اینکه باز شاگردای دیگه هم نوی حسادت نکنن. هدفی است. باز فردا اگر شد با یکی از شما گپ میزنیم.